Hello, everyone. Good evening once again. If you can hear me, you can just type a comment so I get to know if I'm audible. Right, we are going to start the session shortly. I just want to know if I'm audible and we can proceed. Yes, because the first day, quite a number of us were complaining about the sound. Yeah, so please let me know if I'm audible. If I'm audible, you can just let me know so we can proceed. Amazing. I just had a message that I'm audible. Loud and clear. That's amazing. All right. So today marks the second day of our virtual AI and machine learning training organized by the College Caucus of the KNST SRC in collaboration with GAD Academy and partnership with Build It. Once again, my name is Godson Emchi. I'm the founder of Build It and a machine learning engineer. And so today we are going to talk about quite a lot of things, right? So I would need you to pay close attention to whatever we're about to do because it's really going to help you in the long run. Yes, so today we are going to talk about best practices for the training. What is programming? Intro to Python programming. Then we start coding it, right? We start writing Python program. Yes. So we'll talk about variables, we'll talk about data types, and then we'll now move on to operators. All right, good. So let's dive in and get started. Right. So first, we are going to talk about the best practices for the training. Right. So I've got to realize that quite a number of us, when they are taking online courses, we struggle to complete. And I sat down to analyze. I analyzed and I realized that it's either the person is struggling to grasp the concept behind what the instructor is teaching, or it could be that the fault could be from the student. Yes, from the student. Yeah. So these are some do's and don'ts for taking online courses. Yes, and this is very important for you because you need this to complete the program successfully. Right. So the first one is don't just copy my code. When I'm teaching, don't look at what I write, the code I write, and type it. If you do that, you are just sharpening your typing skills. You are just looking at what I'm coding and you just type it. When you do that, you are learning to become a typist, not a programmer. Right? Yeah. So the best thing you can do is you watch, then you understand the logic behind what I explained. Then you write the code yourself. Do you get it? This would make it stick. Now, the second one is don't skip debugging. When we start with Python programming, I would explain vividly what debugging is. But then for now, let's just talk about errors. Now, when you start programming, you'd encounter errors. Now, whenever you encounter an error, don't skip it. Dig into the error and fix it. Yes, so figure out what's wrong and solve it step by step. Now, there's this saying that failure is a condiment that gives success its flavor, right? When you it's more related to programming. When you write code and you run into errors, right? What happens is that that error would teach you a lesson. So next time when you are writing the code, you make sure you don't repeat that error, and that increases your level of experience, right? Now the next one is don't memorize without getting it. In programming, we don't try memorizing it, although it's good. There are at a point in time you need to memorize some one or two things, but then don't rely on solely memorizing everything. So programming is not like how we usually learn the theoretical stuff. You have to get the logic behind why this code was written. Do you get it? And try and relate it to your memory. Yes. So focus on why the code works, like why we use a loop. I'll explain loop later so you can adapt it later. Right. Someone is saying typist far. All right. Yes. Now the next one is don't rush through videos. Now, this is the live session. What I would recommend you guys to do is it's best you don't have divided attention. So when you join this live session, you watch what I'm doing, you understand the logic behind it. Then at your own free time, when I give you access to the resource materials, you can sit down and practice. Because programming requires practice. It is by practicing that increases your experience level. Yes. And The next one is, so the fix is pause, play with examples, and let the concept sink in. So once you're done watching this live session, you can come back later on and watch it again. Maybe there's a concept you really want to understand, right? You can come back, revisit the video, and watch it. That would make you understand it better. Right. Now, the next one is, don't skip practice examples. See, I'll be giving you guys a Jupyter notebook containing the codes and the explanation. Right. I would also give you practical questions for you to write codes to solve them. Yes, try and tackle them, because these are the petty things that increases your level of experience. Programming is not like programming is not like you just watching what the instructor is doing. Once you are done, then you leave. No, you will definitely forget. Right? Yes. So you have to tackle exercises as well. And don't burn out. See, it's very good to take short breaks to keep your brain sharp. You see, there are some people, most of us, because of how theoretical our academic system is, we we raise that paradigm of LAMLA, last minute learning, when it comes to things like this. So because some people want to get certificates after the training, what happens is that they would wait last minute when we're about to distribute the certificate before they would try and rush through the videos and cram. No, it's not going to work. So take your time bit by bit and make sure you understand every single bit of information we provide. Right. Yeah. So we are going to move on to what programming is. Yes, we can't just start writing code, creating a program without understand what programming is. So if you go somewhere, let's say you have an interview and they ask you what is programming, right? Now, let me explain programming in a very simple way to you. Imagine you've got this super smart computer that's like your best friend, ready to do awesome stuff, like make a game, create an app for your favorite, maybe favorite movie, or maybe your Afrobeat tracks, or maybe your songs you like listening, right? Or even help count stuff at the market. But here's the deal: it only does what you tell it to do, and you have to be super clear, right? Yeah. So programming is you giving the computer step by step directions, like, oh, yo, show a picture of a busy market, or play that Burna Boy song I like listening to when I click it, or yeah, so that's basically what programming is. So you write these instructions in a specific language called code, right? For the computer to perform a specific task. Good. So once again, you can think of it like chatting with a computer in its own vibe, like a computer in its own vibe, using stuff like Python or Scratch, which are all programming languages. Right. Good. So that is basically what programming is. So programming is the process of writing instructions for a computer to perform a specific task. As simple as that. Now, think of it as teaching a computer what to do step by step. That is it. That is what programming is. Right. Now, once we understand what programming is, we have to also understand what a programming language is. Now, a programming language is like a secret code you use to talk to a computer and tell it what to do. So imagine you are teaching your, let's say you have a robot. This is an AI training, so I'll be using robots to make to explain most of the examples, right? Yeah. So imagine you are teaching your robots how to dance to your favorite song. You need to use special words for it to understand, like move left or show a picture. Right. Now, a programming language like Python, or let's say Scratch or C++, Java or JavaScript, is this kind of bunch of special words and rules you use to give the computer clear instructions to make the cool stuff like games or apps. Right. Good. So it's like you giving your robot a fun to-do list it can follow. That is what a programming language is. So a programming language is a special way to write instructions that a computer can understand and follow to do things like make apps, games, or solve problems. Simple. Right. So every programming language comes in its own way or its own syntax. Python programming language has a different syntax from C programming language, right? It's just like our normal languages we speak. Ga, Hausa, Ewe, they are all different languages and they all have different syntax. So that is basically what programming language is. Good. So at this point, we are done with the basics and we are going to move straight into Python programming. Right. So I have my Jupyter notebook here. I instructed you guys to install Python and Anaconda. Right. So once you are able to install Python and Anaconda, when you want to launch Jupyter notebook, it's very simple. Right. But before I do that, let me display my entire screen so you guys will get what I'm trying to say. All right. All right. So when you want to launch Jupyter Notebook, assuming you've installed Python and Anaconda, I told you yesterday that you just come to where your apps are, go to all, and now come to the Anaconda folder. Right. Come to the Anaconda folder. So once you select on Anaconda, you cannot click on Jupyter Notebook. So once you click on Jupyter Notebook, you would realize that you would have something like this, a window like this. A window like this will show, right? And once that is done, it would open a window in any of your active web browsers. Good. So this time around, I'm using Google Chrome, so it will launch it here. If you are using, yes. So based on the web browser you are using, it will launch a local host there. That is how it works, right? So you can even run this without an internet connection. So Jupyter Notebook is way different from Google Colab. Google Colab, you need internet to run it. So don't worry if you haven't installed Python and Anaconda, you can use Google Colab. Yes, you can use Google Colab. Yes, and if you want to use Google Colab, you just go to the search bar, type Google Colab, right? Now, Google Colab is basically a free cloud-based platform for writing and executing Python code within a web browser. Good. So when you come to Google Colab, what you do is you launch it and then you open a new notebook, right? So once you open a new notebook, you would have to connect it to either your CPU or a GPU. Now, you realize that I said Google Colab is a free cloud-based platform for writing and executing Python code. So it is cloud-based. So today, let's say you can name it as day 2. Do you get it? And you can connect it. You can connect it to either your CPU, so it means that the code would run with your computer's resources, or you can connect it to a GPU. A GPU is more powerful. It's more powerful than a CPU, and a GPU stands for graphics processing units. So yes, graphics processing units, and Google has its own GPUs. So you can, if the project is very complex and requires high computational power, that is, you can't run it with your computer's resources, you can connect to one of Google's GPUs on the cloud and use it. Do you get it? So when you want to do that, you go to connect, then you go to change runtime type. Then you can either use CPU or GPU. So let's just select CPU. So once you do that, then you connect. Note that with this, you need internet connection. Right now, someone is saying, I'm using PyCharm. It's simple and easy to use. Yes, PyCharm is a good IDE for Python, but then for data science and AI, we need a more interactive console where we can get to display tables and all that. So it's good to use Jupyter Notebook and Google Colab for AI and what's the name? Yeah, for AI and data science. Right. Yeah. So let me write a simple Python code here. Print print day two. Print day two. Now when you run it, realize that it has printed it. So you are doing this on a cloud. So if maybe you are following this training and you haven't installed Python and Anaconda yet, you can use Google Colab. Right. Now, before anything else, I'll be using Jupyter Notebook to explain everything today. Right. Yeah. So once you launch Jupyter Notebook, you get to see something like this. Right. So you can now create your first file. Let me zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right. So you can now create a first file. So when you want to create a Jupyter Notebook file, come to new, and click on Python 3. As simple as that. So once you click on it, it will open a new tab for you. Good. Now this tab, let it load, let it finish loading. So good. So you can also name, if you want to change the name, you can change the name from untitled to day 2. Please don't change the extension. The extension for Jupyter Notebook file is IPyNB. So something like when you see Py, it's the short extension for Python. NB is more like notebook, right? Good. So that will be it. And rename. Good. So in the same way, when I run print day 2, shift enter, you also see the day 2 here, just like what you saw here. Good. Good. So that is it for Jupyter Notebook. There is more to Jupyter Notebook when I'm explaining, when I'm writing the code in the Jupyter Notebook, you would get to see a lot of things I'll be doing. Then I'll explain it to you. Good. So that is it. Now, when you want to run the code, you can either use this icon here. So run this cell and advance. Now, when you don't want to be clicking, you can use shift enter. Realize that when I hover the mouse pointer on the icon, you see a screen tip which says run this cell and advance. So that is shift plus enter, into bracket shift plus enter. So if you want to run the code, so let's say print 1 plus 3. When you want to run this, it's either you click here or you can use shift and enter. So shift plus enter, then it will run it for you. So what you see here are more like cells where you write a code. Right now, these cells come in various types. This could be a cell which you can write a code in it. So when you write anything you write, you see here is selected as when you see here is selected as code. So you can click the drop down icon and change it to either markdown or raw. So when you change this to raw, when you run it, it would analyze it as a text. It wouldn't return any outputs because the cell has been converted to a raw cell. But then when I want to make it a code, I'll bring it back to code. When I run, I'll get an output. Good. So let's take note of that. So these are some of the basic things. If you want to insert a cell below, you can click here. If you want to insert a cell above, you can click here. If you want to move this cell above, you can click here. If you want to move this cell below, you can click here and it will move. Right. So these are some of the basic things you need to interact with Jupyter Notebook. Right. So I know quite a number of you have issues with installing Python and all that. So don't worry about that. You can follow the lesson or you can use Google Colab for now. Yes, good. So that is it for how to interact with Jupyter Notebook, the basic way to interact with Jupyter notebook. There are more advanced ways to do that. Right. Yeah. So from here, we are going to move on to Python programming. So we are starting the main thing today. So right from here, you would learn how to write a Python program. So I created a file and I named it Intro to Python. That is virtual AI training. This is just a name. You can click on it and change it anytime. Good. So let's start. First, we have to know what Python is because it's very important. You might go somewhere, you tell someone that I'm a Python programmer, the person will ask you what is Python, then you don't know what to say. Are you going to say it's an animal, it's a snake? No, it's not. So let's start with Python. Once again, you see, I've organized the notebook into content and code. So this cell like this is a markdown. So this one is a markdown. So one advantage of Jupyter Notebook is that you can document your code as well. Because let's say you are a data scientist to work on a machine learning model, right? When you build the project in Jupyter Notebook, you can get to document it. Yes, you can get to yes, you can get to sorry, I was reading the comments. I would answer the comments very soon. Yeah, I do too more. I just asked a question. Yes, I would answer it soon. Yes. So you can get to document your code. You can get to explain with raw cells and markdowns. Right. Yeah. So today we are not really focusing on markdowns and all that. But then as when we start machine learning, I'll teach you how to document all those things. Right. Good. So for now, let's just explain what Python is. Now, Python is a high level interpreted programming language known for its simplicity and readability. Now, when we say high level, this means Python is like talking to your computer in a way that's easy for people to understand, almost like plain English. Yes, yes, good. So, and when we talk about interpreted is more, let me select it. I want to explain the keywords here so you guys get to understand it. So, interpreted is more like, think of this like the computer reading your instructions line by line, like you reading a storybook out loud. Python doesn't need to translate all your code into a computer language first. It just run it as you go, which makes it quick and easy to test stuff like games or animations. So realize that when I run this, let's say name is equal to name is equal to GAD, right? Print name. Realize that as soon as I run this cell, Python gives me an output. This shows that it is an interpreted language. It runs the instructions line by line. There are some programming languages that it would have to compile the entire instructions. It would have to compile everything before it runs. Yes, those are called compilers. But Python is an interpreted language. Good. Now, I also mentioned simplicity, right? Yes. So Python is super easy to learn because its instructions are clear and not too complicated. It's like giving your friend simple directions like walk 2 steps and jump instead of a long, confusing list. So one thing that makes Python very simple is that the syntax is more like plain English. So when you check this very well, print 1 plus 3. So when you see there's someone, you can basically see that, well, I'm using a print function. I want to return, I want to produce an output. How do I do it? You know that basically when you print a soft copy, you get a hard copy. So it gives you an output. You get it? So Python language is more simplified and the syntax is more like plain English. That is why it makes it simple. And I also used readability here. Good. Yes. So readability, this means Python's code looks clean and makes sense when you read it, almost like a story. Yes. So, for example, instead of using weird symbols, you might write Python in just simple language. So it makes it very readable. Look at this. If you are to write this in C, programming language or C++, you get to see how how difficult it is to read. Right? Yes. Good. So that is it. Python is versatile. You can use Python for web development. You can use it for data science, automation, AI, and more. So Python has a lot of applications, and it is easy to learn because it has a clean and simple syntax. It has large community and extensive library. So when you want to do data analysis, you can use libraries like Pandas, NumPy, and all that. So it makes it very broad because of its extensive libraries it has and large community. Yes, and it can run across any platform, whether Windows, Mac OS, Linux, or anything that you are using. Right. Good. So that is it. Now, I I read something about Python programming last time, and I was asking myself, why did they give the name Python to for the name of the programming language? Why? So I did my research and I got to realize that the actual the actual thing is that Python is not a snake. The inspiration is not from a snake. No, there was this funny British TV show, or let me put it in this way: there was this BBC comedy called Monty Python's Flying Circus. So let me write it here. Let me do it as a comment. Monty Python, Monty Python's Flying Circus. So this was a BBC comedy, right? It was a BBC comedy, and the guy who made Python, he's called Guido van Rossum. The guy who developed Python is called Guido van Rossum. Yes, he was he was he was a fan of that comedy show. Right, so when he started building Python in 1980, yes, in 1989, he wanted a name that was short, cool, and not boring. So he chose Python to give a shout out to the show because he loved it. Yeah, so that's actually the inspiration behind the name Python, not the not the snake. Right? I guess we've learned something wonderful. Someone is saying, in fact, this is so impressive. I like this. I like the feedback. All right, now let's move on. In fact, I have energy. I have energy. So when I'm teaching you, I'll teach you with full energy. Right. So you have to follow this tutorial. You have to make sure that you understand everything before you go. Right. Now, this comes to the point where you are going to write a code. Right. You can see from the comment section that someone asked, she's called Ya Educhumwa. She asked, why do you start with print when writing the code? Why? Good. That is a very good question. So before I explain this question, I would want to print I would want to welcome you all once again to the training by writing a simple Python code. So don't worry about it if you don't know it for now. So welcome to this Python programming course. Don't worry if you don't know this, I would explain it to you. Now you can see the output, right? Good. Now in Python, there is a function. There is a function which is known as the print function. So let me. Oh yeah, someone is asking, can you run? Can you run? Can it also run on a mobile phone? Yes, you can run it on a mobile phone. When you go to Google Colab, you can run it. Yeah, you can. So let's talk about the print function. Someone is saying you should be a lecturer. Interesting. All right. All right. Good. Let's proceed. Let's proceed. I was taking a screenshot of it. Good. So let's talk about the print function. The print function. Let me convert this into a markdown and run it. Good. Let me insert one cell below. Amazing. Now, the print function, let me see if I place it here. Let me put it as well. Okay, good. Concept, the print function. The print function displays output to the console. So you realize that when I used print into brackets and I placed the string inside, it returned a text to the console. Now, when we say a console, what do we mean by a console? So, okay, let's put it this way. Imagine you are talking to a robot and telling it what to do. The console is like a chat window where you and the robot can send messages to each other. So let's say you tell the robot, hey robot, say hello. The robot shows hello in the console. So in programming, you write code to tell the computer something, and the console shows you what the computer is doing, thinking or saying. So when you write this, this console would show what the computer did, thought of, or the action it took. Then it will return it to you. So that is what a console is. So it's basically a place where you can see messages from your code. You can also see errors if something goes wrong, or basically what your program is doing. So that is what a console is. Good. So the print function can take strings, it can take numbers, variables, or arguments. Or variables as arguments. Right? Good. So the print function displays output to the console. So if you whenever you want to, whenever you are sorry, I have a distracted mind here. I was reading the comment, sorry. So whenever you want to display an output to the console, you use the print function. That is why I write the I wrote this inside the print, because I wanted to return it here. Now note that it is not returning this quotes, because in Python you put strings. So this is a string. You put strings in quotes. So you can either use single quotation or double quotation. Or double quotation. Sorry, let me put it well. So you can either use a single quote or a double quote. Right? So double quotes, sorry. Yes, when you run it, you also get the same output. You can also use a triple quote as well. It all works. Right? Great. So amazing. So that is the print function. Right? Good. So let's say yeah, so that is basically what the print function is. Now let's move on to the next thing. The next thing you would have to know when it comes to Python programming is a variable. A variable. Right? You know, in mathematics, you can say X is a variable. X is a variable because it can change. Right? That is why it's a variable. In programming, variable is more like a named storage location in memory that holds a value. So take it that you have a variable and you have a value. So if X is a variable, what value is it holding? So you can see that sometimes you write X is equal to 4. X is equal to 4. So in this case, X is the variable and 4 is the value. So that is the same concept when it comes to variables in programming. Good. But then the main thing is doing is that it's acting like a storage. It's acting like a storage. So if you say X is equal to 4, it means that this value 4 has been stored in memory with the variable name X. That is it. As simple as ABCD. Now, think of it as a labeled box where you can store data. Variables allow you to store and manipulate data in your program. Right, good. So we are going to write variables. We've already done one here. And Before I did that one here, but then there are rules when you are naming variables. Now, the first rule is it must start with a letter or underscore. So let's say a letter. So name is equal to, I'm using a string, so I'll put it in quotes. I explained this to you. GAD, right? So this is a variable. And I started because I'm following the rules. It says that you can either start with a letter or an underscore. So you can use small letters or capital letters, right? Now, when I want to print out this name, I would use the print function. So this is the print function. Open and close bracket. Then I'll put the variable in it. So look at something. When I print this, what do I get? I get the output GAD. In the same way, when I print when I print when I print GAD like this, I would also get the same output. Now, the reason why I mentioned that a variable is a named, yes, the reason why I mentioned that a variable is a named storage location is because when you assign this value GAD to name, this variable name is now storing the text GAD. So if you print the variable, it would return what it is storing, which is this, right? That is why I said, that is another reason why I said, yes, that is why I said it's more like a name storage location, right? Good. Now you can also start with underscore. So when I want to do that, I'll put the underscore there and print it. I'll get the same output. Now, it contains letters, numbers, and underscore. Can contain numbers, letters, and underscores. It is case sensitive. If I say case sensitive, it means that when I use lowercase, when I'm working with it, I would have to use lowercase. If you change it into uppercase, it might return an error. Let's take an example. Age is equal to 34. Print print age. Now we all know that when we print age is storing the value 34. So the output will be what? 34. Now, in the same way, when I use capital H is equal to 35. If I print if I print age, yes, if I print age, I'll get 34. I'll get 34. Now, if I change it to capital H like this, capital A, I'll get 35. So Python is case sensitive. It only recognizes the case you use. So you have to take a close look at it. Python is case sensitive. Let me explain it in another way. Assuming I don't have anything like capital H and I print this, it will return an error. Oh, it has stored it in memory. So it has stored it in memory. So let me change it. Let me use let me delete everything. Good. So let me say age is equal to 24. And I print age like this. Oh, that the reason why we are encountering this is because initially when I used the capital H, it stored it in memory. So let me delete this and do it again. Let's use another thing like name is equal to Godsonic. Good. Now print name. Now, ideally, when I run this code, it would return the value it is storing, which is Godsonic. But then if I use capital N, you can see that it is running and it would return an error. So then capital name is not defined because I used capital N here. and here the actual thing was small n. So this makes Python case sensitive. We have lowercase, we have uppercase. So Python is case sensitive. You have to know what you are doing, right? Good. So that is it. Variables can store different, data types. It can store different values. We'll get to understand. Yes, you'd get to understand everything in detail as we move on. Right. So with this, we are just playing with Python, right? We are just playing with Python. Let's move on to the next one. We are going to look at variable assignments. Variable assignments. Now, use the equal to operator to assign a value to a variable. We've done this. When you want to give a variable, let's say x, a value, you use the operator equal to. So when you do this, this process is called variable assignment. You are assigning a value to a variable. That is all. The variable name is on the left. So this is it. So the variable name is on the left and the value is on the right. So this is the right of the equal to operator. Good. Now, I'm going to introduce something special to you guys, which is called Python keywords. Now, let's analyze this way. Let's come to our local Ghanaian senior high school system. Every senior high school has terminologies, or I don't know, words they use, right? When you go to Presec Legon, there are some terms that when we say it means something. There's a term like mo. You dey go mo, it means you are going to learn. Right? So when someone at Presec Legon hears the word mo, the first thing that will come in his mind is to study. Right? Yes. We have another word like strike. Charlie, you dey strike dining hall, you dey strike the hall. Yeah, so strike is more like you rushing to the dining hall to get food, to get a table, right? Yes. So these are more like keywords that are being used in different places. When it comes to Python programming, there are keywords you can also use, right? Now, these keywords are used for specific things. So just like a preset logo, when you say strike, strike means you are striking to the dining hall, you are rushing to the dining hall. That is the term that is being used for that activity. So you don't use that term for another thing. You don't use it for any other thing, right? Good. So same happens to keywords in Python. So keywords are reserved words in Python that have special meanings and cannot be used as variable names. They cannot be used as variable names. They cannot be used as variable names. Good. So examples of Python keywords, examples of those reserved words in Python. One is if, else, while, blah, blah, blah. There are a lot, right? But then if you want to know all the lists of keywords in Python, this is what you can do. Please, once again, the code I'm about to run, you don't have to know it at this stage. You don't have to know it at this stage, please. I just want to show you guys something. I want to display all the Python keywords. So I would import the library, which is called keyword. So import keyword. Print. I want to show you all the list of keywords in Python. Print Python keywords keyword dot kw list. Run it. Now, when I run it, you can see these are all Python keywords: false, none, true, and, as, assert, async, await, break, class, blah blah blah. These are Python keywords. So you don't use these keywords as variable names, because maybe you can use it as a variable name and maybe it might work. I've not tried it before, but then later on it might affect your code when you keep on writing complex code. So these reserved keywords, we don't use them as variable names, please. don't use this as variable names. Right? Good. So that is it for Python keywords. And the next thing we are going to talk about is data types. Data types. Yeah, so I just explained the keyword model with you. Yes. So you can go through. I'll share the Jupyter notebook file with you so you guys can understand it. Right. Now, before we move on to data types, in fact, I'm bombarding you with too much knowledge. That is why you need to rewatch this video. Once you understand the concept here, when I give you the notebook, this Jupyter notebook, you would read the code, understand it, and try and write it, practice it. So this lesson is for you to comprehend what I'm teaching. That is why I said here, I mentioned something here that don't just copy my code. If you just copy the code, what I'm doing, you become a typist, not a programmer. Good. Now, hey, this comedian, this Ghanaian comedian has made that good thing stick. All right. All right, let's move on. So a data type. What is the data type? What at all is a data type? So in Python, we are basically going to write a lot of code. I mean, a lot of codes, right? We have to find a way to do things in a structured way. Now, when we were in primary school, we were taught that when you see six is a number. When you see A is a letter. When you see SAT is a word. So we got to know that we got to know how to classify all those things. When I see plus is an arithmetic operator. When I see minus, is an arithmetic operator, right? So we got to know all those classifications. So same thing happens in Python because Python is a language. We have to know how to classify these different data. So a data type defines the kind of value a variable can hold. You realize that here I mentioned that x is equal to 6. X is the variable which is storing the value 6. So a data type defines the kind of value, finds the kind of value that a variable can hold. So this data type, when you see 6, you know 6 is an integer. So this particular data type is what? An integer. Right? So that is basically what a data type is. We have numbers, we have what's the name? A variable can hold a number, a text, or boolean. I would explain what boolean is. Right? So in Python, common data types, we have int. Let me make this let me put, is it backtick? There's a name for this. Let me check the name. There's a name for this yeah, it's called backtick. Yeah, I'm right. Correct for 3 points. Yes. So backtick is the key right below the escape key. When I put this word into backticks, you see how it would appear later on. I want you guys to see something. So let me edit this very well for you to get it. Good, you can now see that it has been highlighted, right? So the common data types in Python, we have integer, we have decimals, we have strings, we have boolean, and we have none. So integer, the short form is int in small letters. Decimal, that is when you have something like 6, when you have something like 4.45. It's a decimal. In Python, it's called a float. It's called a float. So please note them. And we have a string. A string is more like a text. So in Python, we put string in quotes. So Godson is a good boy. Yes, because I'm a good boy. So this is a string, right? We have Boolean. Boolean is either true or false. I'll explain them to you, don't worry. And none type. So with this, when we get to machine learning, when we get to the data analysis parts, you get to appreciate this a lot. Right. So this is what a data type is. So let me quickly walk you through them, then you get to understand it. Right. So first, let's start with um defining. Please let me explain something to you. There's something we call comments. Comments in programming. There's something we call comments. I can see you guys might be wondering, why am I using the hashtag? Yes, why am I using the hashtags in the code I'm writing? Yes. Now, when we talk about a comment or comments are notes within code that are ignored by the either a compiler or interpreter during execution. So when I write this in Python, when you want to write a comment, yes, when you want to write a comment, you start with the hashtag, right? So with this, when you run the code, the interpreter would ignore it. So when you do 6, so you see, ideally when I do plus 6, I'll get what? 12. But then when I put hashtag in front, it becomes a comment. So when I run it, I will not get any output. This is what a comment is. So the interpreter would ignore it when it is executing the code. So we basically use comments as notes or explanations to the code we write. So that later on, maybe when you want to make reference to a code you wrote, you would understand, or you can easily recall that I wrote this code to do this. Or maybe when you share your project with another person, the person can read the comment and get to understand why you wrote this code. So with this, let me write a comment defining variables with different data types. Good. So first, we are going to start with an integer. So let me give it this name, integer underscore num. You quite remember that we said variable names can have underscore, right? It can have underscore. So integer underscore num is equal to 42. So this variable type is what? An integer. You know what an integer is? Good. Now, let's use a float. So let me give it the name float num. Once again, variable names are variable. They are varying. You can use any name. So 3.14 is what? Is a float. It's a float. That is what? A decimal what? Decimal number. Good. Integer is more like what? A whole number. Amazing. Now, we also have a string. So a string, let me use cent, which maybe I'm using cent because maybe sentence, right? So the variable name I'm using sentence. So um Abna is a good girl. I don't want to cause trouble. Abna is a good girl. Good. So in Python, when you want to use a text or a string, you put it in quotes. So you can either use single quotes or you can use double quotes. So this is a what? A string, which is the same as what? Um, which is the same as what? A text. Something like more like a text, right? Good. Now we are going to look at Boolean. Boolean, a Boolean value. Now you quite remember that I said Boolean value is basically true or false. Now let's use this variable name. It's active. Are you all active? Yes, you guys are active. So I'll put true there. So you see that as soon as I write true, it becomes green. As soon as I write 42, it becomes what? Green. 3.14, it becomes what? Green. This shows that in Jupyter notebook, this coloring makes you get to know what you are doing. You get it? So when it's a string, you see this color. When it is variable assignment, which I explained here. Where is it? Yeah, variable assignment, that is using the equal to operator. You see the violet thing here. You get it? And all the variable names are in white. So that is one thing you can also notice about it. Good. So it's active, true. Um, let me use it's bad. You can use any this one, false. Do you get it? So a boolean value is more like whether it's true or it's false. Now, boolean actually comes from the word boo. It comes from the word. Let me put the term boo. Sorry, the term boo. So you see, str is the short form of string. So boolean, the short form is boo, like this. So the word or the term boo originates from the English mathematician and philosopher, which he's called George Boo. Let me search for you guys to see. George George Boo with E. Yeah, I think I'm right. Yeah. So this man, he is known to develop a system of symbolic logic known as the Boolean algebra. So when you hear the Boolean algebra, it's basically working with variables that can either be true or false. So he's the one who brought the Boolean variable through his invention of Boolean algebra. Right. Good. So Boolean is either a true or a false value. So if you print any of them, so let's say print is active, it will print out the value it is storing. True. You get it? Because it's active is the variable which is storing true. So it will print out the value which is storing to the console. Right, good. So that is what we mean by data types. Now, there's one interesting thing here. There's one interesting thing here. Very, very interesting. The type function. You see, functions have open and close brackets. When I was explaining the print function, you see, print has open and close brackets, starting with a small letter. There's another function also called the type function. So you use the type function to know the type of variable you are working with. So let me add a cell here. Let me add a cell below. Now I want to know the type of this variable. If you want to know the type of this variable, you are going to use the type function. So type. So this is the type function. Now we want to know the data type of this variable name, which is integer num. So when I type in integer num, it would return the type of data type to me, which is what? Int. You see, you can see int because this integer num variable is storing the integer 42. So let me do another one. If I want to know the type, if I want to know the type of is bad or is active, is active, it will return what? Bool, because it is a Boolean value. So that is what the type function does. So the type function, is more like it returns the data type of the variable, and it's also used for debugging. It's also used for debugging. It's also used for debugging. Used for debugging or verifying the type of data in your program. Now, I mentioned the word debugging. What is debugging? Debugging. What is debugging? Now, sometimes you hear programmers say, "Oh, Charlie, I have a bug in my code." I have a bug in my code. In programming, when you hear bug, which is bug, bug is basically a mistake in your code or an error. So if you are debugging is more like you are fixing the bug. So you are removing the errors or the mistakes in your code. So let me use a more practical example to explain it. Imagine you are building a toy car with blocks. You follow all the steps, but when you push it, it doesn't move. You are building a toy car. Oh. You follow all the steps, but when you try to push it, it doesn't move. That is when you realize that something is wrong. So you either check the wheels or you look at the wood pieces. The toy car, maybe you are using blocks. So you look at the pieces and you fix any part that's not right. That fixing you are doing is what we call debugging in programming. So debugging is more like fixing errors or mistakes in your code or your program. That is what debugging is. So sometimes you might be confused. You might be working with maybe a data set that is hey, let me use this. Good. God is so wonderful. God is so wonderful. Let me use this example to explain to you. When I use this variable name num is equal to 6, 7, or let me use 7. Now, 7 is this 7 is an integer. When I check the type of num, it will return an integer. But then you quite remember that I told you that when you are creating strings, you put strings in either single or double quotes. So when I put 7 in quotes, Python would understand it as a string, not a number. So when you run this, it would come as what? A string. To come as a string. So let me give you a practical example. Last time I was working on a data project, a database project, a data frame. And when they imported the Excel file to me, when they imported the Excel file, the file was having numbers which are stored as a string. I don't know if I can show you guys. Let me see if I can show you guys. Let me open Google Sheet and show you something. So you guys will appreciate what I'm teaching. Let me create a new sheet, right? Now, in Google Sheets or let's say Excel, right? When I put apostrophe in front and I write and I put 7 there, it will store it as a string or let's say a text. But then when I just write it just 7 like that, realize that this one it has moved to the left, but this one it has moved to the right. There's a difference because this one started with apostrophe, and when you do that, the cell would analyze it as a text, but this one it will analyze it as a number. So sometimes data sets or data frames come with instances where figures have been stored as strings. So you in the ideal way, when you look at the data frame, you feel like, oh, because I'm seeing numbers, it is actually a number. But then what happened behind, you didn't see it. It might be that they stored it as strings. Do you get it? So you have to know. You can write a code, you can try and add, because you can actually add numbers. You can actually add numbers. So you try and run the code and you realize that, oh, I'm getting an error. This is because the data type you are working with is a string, not an integer. So you get to use the type function to check the data type. And you now know that, okay. So the data frame was that particular column was stored as string. So I would have to convert it into an integer. Then I can now continue with my operation. This is how wonderful programming is. See, programming is interesting. Some people will tell you that, oh, programming is hard. Programming is hard. So, but they are not ready to embrace the future. They are not ready to do something interesting. Programming is fun. If you understand the logic, if you are able to understand the logic behind Python programming, when you are learning a different programming language, it will be simple because the logic is the same. The only thing that will change is the syntax, how you write it. That's all. So you see that you can use the type function to also do debugging. I've given you a practical example, right? So you can imagine when we get to machine learning, when we are building projects, you can see how practical it will be. When we are building AI agents, it will see how practical. So this should motivate you to finish the program. Because see, if you finish this program, oh my god, you'll be competing on the international level. Sometimes I just look at myself. I feel like I'm an African. I'm a Ghanaian. I join online webinars, LinkedIn live events, and I make some contributions. The Americans will be like, "Hey, Charlie, this guy." But I don't see myself to be that way. Just because I learned things the hard way. I learned things in a very practical way. That is what you have to also embrace. You get it? Yeah. So this is a very wonderful session. And once again, I would like to give um the college caucus a very big ups. I want to give them big ups because this is a very nice and amazing initiative. And personally, I'm enjoying the tuition. Yes. So let's move on to the next thing. Right? What do we have next? String operations. String operations. Now you can actually operate on strings, right? Now strings can be manipulated using operators like plus and repetition. Now there's something we call concatenation. When I was in senior high school, first year, I hadn't learned Python programming. I started learning Python programming in second year. My colleagues went to Shark Squeeze and they asked one, what is concatenation? And he answered, I was like, my own colleague knows what concatenation is. I don't know what concatenation is. When you hear the word concatenation, you feel like, hey, Charlie, this is a complex word, but it's a very simple thing. So concatenation is like you adding two strings using the plus sign. That is all. So, so let's say I have. So you can do concatenation using the plus sign, and you can do repetition using the times, right? So, let's use this example. Let's say first name. Let's use the variable name first name, and let's store it. I'm using a text, so I'll put it in quotes. So let's say um let me use someone who just wrote a comment. Miss LB. Good. So first name is Miss. Second, or let me say last name. Last name is equal to what? LB. Right? Okay. LB. Good. Now I want to create this lady's full name. So if I want to create a full name, what do I do? I can now use string concatenation. So full name. So full name will be equal to. Now, whenever you are doing whenever you are doing concatenation, you can use the variable names because this variable is storing the text mix and this last name variable is storing LB. Good. So if I want to add, if I want to generate the full name will actually be what Miss LB. So it means I have to add the first name and the last name. So it will actually be first name plus last name. So now full name is storing this. So if you print full name, it will give you the output Miss LB, but it will combine it. Look at it, it will combine it. You see Miss LB. So we have to find a way to bring a space between the Miss and the LB. Now, do you know that this is also a string? Let me use space. Quote, space bar, quote, print, space. Now, when you do this, look at something. When you do this, let me put a cell above. Realize that last time I told you that comments do not they don't run. The interpreter would ignore it. So let's say comments. This is a comment, right? You see that when I run the cell, You can see that there's no space here. Oh. See, there's no space here. There's no space. But when I run this cell, let me let me delete it so that you guys will see what I'm doing. You see, when I run this cell, nothing runs. There's nothing on the console. But then when I run this, a space will be printed. See, you can see there's a big space here. The space which is here has actually been printed, but because it's a space, you can't see it. So this is also a text. Python will see it as a text. So I can also add another text. I can also add the space text like this, and I'll add. So I'll add first name plus a space plus last name. When you print this, you can see that you now have what? Miss LB. One other practical way to explain this is, look at this. Name, or let's say um okay, name is equal to co. Let me use co. Now print length of name. Please don't be worried if you don't know this. I just want to explain something to you. We'll get there. Now, when you use len, the len function, the len function actually tells you the length of the data type. So when you print this, you get 4 because co has how many letters? 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I put a space here, Python would also analyze that space as a character. So when you print this, you get what? 5. My God. This is the reason why you have to understand the concepts behind programming. Because when you're programming, when you're teaching programming, let's move on. Interesting. So we have 4 more minutes to go. I wanted to actually explain a lot, but then in fact, there's no time for that. And I don't want to bombard you guys with a lot of things, right? When we get to AI agents, our classes will be 3 hours. Machine learning, our classes will be 3 hours. This one is more like introductory session. Most of you are beginners, so I wouldn't have to bombard you with a lot of concepts. Else, hey, you can go and sleep and be thinking, hey, Charlie, what training have I going to join? Hey, Charlie, my brain is. No, I don't want you guys to fall into that. Right. So next time on our training, we are going to explain what operators are. Already we've worked with some operators. We've worked with some operators. In Python, we have arithmetic operators for mathematical calculation. So just like how we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and all that, Python also has something like that. We have comparison operators where you can use to compare values. So you know that we have ways of comparing values. When I want to compare two values, 6 and 7, I know 7 is greater than 6. There are operators in Python you can use for that. And we have logical operators as well as assignment operators. So next time on our meeting, we are going to digest this concept to the barest minimum in such a way that our body can absorb it. Right? If you got this, you can type bars in the comment section. All right. Good. So this will be the end of today's tutorial. I need you all to sit down. I'll share the Jupyter notebook file with you. See, you can even decide to read the Jupyter notebook, try and practice the code, type the code yourself. You would be okay. When I want to learn a course quickly and I have the Jupyter notebooks, there's no um reason for me to watch the video if the Jupyter notebook has a code with very good explanatory comments. So I'll share the notebook with you. Once again, it was a very insightful. It was a very insightful session, and I would want to motivate you guys to have this level of grit, right? Because tell yourself that I'm completing this training, no matter what. Because in the next 6 weeks, when I dedicate 2 hours a day to learn this course, I'll be a superman in the next 7 weeks. Right. So thank you very much for joining today's session. Until then, take care. Bye, everyone.